Hey everyone, welcome back. We all know Nourish was reworked with Grendel and has been a pretty bomb subsume for other frames now. The fat energy multiplier on all sources is just too good to give up. You've probably even seen what it can do on a combat discipline setup. The self-damage from the aura actually activates Nourish's aura pulse to inflict an AoE stun and viral proc. Unfortunately, Nourish's subsume does not heal and only applies 1 viral proc per burst instead of 10, but that's okay. What's interesting is when you use Nourish Subsume on a summoning frame, be it by converting enemies into allies or literally spawning Shadows of the Dead, Nourish is hilarious to use for these kits. This video is a result of an interaction brought to my attention by Fulius in my Discord. Thank you. I know some of you asked about my Necros Necromancer build. I elaborated on Nash's original Theorem Necros concept. I'll be saving that one for my next upload since Nourish blows the door wide open on Necromancer builds. Today, we're looking at a more simple interaction. Revenant and Zaku. Ironically, Revenant ended up being the more interesting out of these two, but let's see what is going on. Converted enemies by both Revenant's Enthrall and Zaku's Accuse ability are considered neutral entities. This means they can be damaged by both you and the enemy. They can actually even damage each other too, as you can see here when they blow each other up. Nourish works by pulsing out an AoE on a 1-second cooldown when the buff target is hit. Because Nourish is an AoE buff that affects both yourself and all allies in range, and neutral entities in Warframe are considered allies as well, you can buff all your thralls and accused targets with Nourish. This has the consequence of any shots fired by you or enemies at them, causing a viral pulse that both stuns enemies and primes them with viral. More interestingly, because they can even hit each other, this means a single thrall or accused can hit another thrall or accused with their viral pulse, triggering a chain reaction that instantly ripples across any thrall or accused in range. The effects? You get a massive crowd control effect, instant viral priming ranging anywhere from 5 to 10 viral stacks per cascade, and viral buffs for yourself and allies. On infinite scaling setups, if you have access to full strip natively, getting a raw viral buff to your weapons, priming viral in an AoE, and stunning enemies is pretty insane. But it doesn't end there, because enthralled and accused enemies are still considered enemies. You can shoot them yourself to trigger the viral pulse cascade. Also, because you have combat discipline equipped on these builds today, you killing an enemy will trigger your own pulse, which does damage and thus can tag your enthralled or accused targets even if you don't directly hit them with your weapon. Thus, you can constantly proc viral and stun everything everywhere, all the time, by just killing things. And now you can even bring Arcane Avenger as the cherry on top for a flat plus 45% crit chance buff since you're already self-damaging anyways. Limitations of the build though. If you full strip everything, then your own accused and enthralled targets die very easily, so you have to reset casts more often. At the same time, this is still very handy for dealing with endurance enemies, but for Bastille Path where enemies pose less of a threat, if you aim to DPS with your own weapons, it is more beneficial to not armor strip when combining converted enemies with Nourish so that you have a reliable crowd control, viral procs everywhere, and easy stun. This leads us into our Zaku and Revenant builds. On a setup like this, Zaku's 3 ability is super important. This is because it is needed both to convert enemies via Accuse or armor strip with Gaze. Your 4 is still needed to freeze your timers, so you get rid of either Zaku's 1 or 2. If you want to DPS with your own weapons, you replace their 2. If you want to DPS with their guns, which will still trigger combat discipline on kills the pulse viral, then you replace their 1 instead. Whichever you choose, what's important on all builds today is super high range both to maximize the viral pulse radius and for relevant buff radii or ability DPS radius. This Zaku replaces their 2 for Nourish as I'm focused on weapon DPS, but an identical build should work if you replace their 1 instead for lock DPS. It is a shield gating build with 270% energy to shield conversion via brief respite and 3 augur mods, with the other 2 being on my epitaph. This makes Zaku's 1 restore 67.5 shields on cast, which is just enough to fully reset shield gates with the Decay Dragon key equipped. Since we have Nourish on the build, you have the option to replace Equilibrium with Natural Talent if you so wish. 200 Strength is required to full strip enemies with Gaze, which can be achieved with Mult Augmented and Matarai. It pushes us to 225 Strength with Mult Augmented fully stacked, so long as Sling Strength is active, and you can even run Umbral Intensify to require less Mult Augmented stacks. A bonus on Madurai is plus 50% casting speed even though we aren't modding natural talent, but if you're choosing to DPS with Zanku's too, Gaze's 100% armor strip is mandatory on Steel Path. Just keep in mind that Nourish does not buff the damage of the lock guns with Viral. If you don't want to use Madurai, 2 Power Strength Shards or 1 Tau Forge does the trick, and you can also slap casting speed shards on too if you so choose. 265 range makes both Nourish Viral Pulse and the Gaze's armor strip have a 31.8 meter radius, which is more than half of most tiles, so long as your 4 is active to freeze timers on Q's and Gaze, as well as Lock or Zatas depending on your choice of DPS, you will maintain 75% evasion, making it much easier to shield gate, even though build does not have a source of hard crown control. Prime Sure-Footed is obvious. You would most likely run an attack speed or fire rate arcane here. Treat the Zanku as a baseline on how the Nourish setup can run and tweak it to your liking. Some may bring up that the Relentless Loss can be used to save some strength. But keep in mind, strength also affects your viral buff from Nourish, energy multiplier, damage of lockers at its boost, and is also annoying to use. Use if you want, I don't like it, especially because of all the ways we can source strength these days, but it can let you skip Madurai. The epitaph build I'm bringing looks like this. It's a generic viral radiation primer that also naturally procs blast and cold. This is the same pistol setup I will be bringing for Revenant later. Its true purpose is carrying 2 Agremot so that I can shield gate easily with Zata's Whisper. Dexterity helps to add combo duration if you're DPSing with melee, but you can bring whatever DPS weapon you want. I don't really have any particular recommendations today. I honestly shouldn't need to give recommendations on a setup that can 100% full strip, AoE viral procs for 5 to 10 stacks, stun locks enemies, and also gives yourself massive viral damage buffs. For a companion today, I'm bringing the same Panzer as always for equilibrium synergy. The viral quill spread is considered pet assist on anything it tags and will activate Synth Deconstruct for extra health orbs. Synth Fiber lets you pick up these health orbs even at full HP and convert it into energy with equilibrium. We also have survivability mods Martyr to save you, Devolution to save your cat, Radar to find more enemies, and Vacuum. Revenant was the alternative comfy setup we tested as well. The same principle holds true where enthralled targets can be slapped around silly to spread massive viral proc AoEs. While Revenant doesn't naturally have access to armor strip like Zanku, Revenant is also much more chill to play. I also mentioned that even no armor strip is okay because it actually means your converted enemies live longer. On top of this, Revenant even has augments the favorite weapon DPS via Thrall Pact. This is perfect because its main ability DPS through his 4 has anti-synergy with Nourish since it is unaffected by Nourish buffs and also kills all your Thralls just as easily as it kills enemies. Your Thralls have no extra damage reduction and is the exact reason why nuking builds don't work well with Nourish and Enthrall. Building strength for Thrall Pact also makes Reeve's scale higher. This is particularly handy with Nourish because a 238 strength build makes Reeve do 95% HP damage to enthralled targets but only 19% against unthralled targets. A single viral proc instantly brings this up to 38%, letting a 3-sweep kill, and landing 4 viral procs would boost that Reeve to 52.4% HP per hit for a 2-sweep kill. 4 viral procs should be very easy to achieve with your 7 Thralls and you running around with a Nourish Aura, proccing viral in a massive AoE cascade. Reeve also regenerates Mesmer Skin stacks, and with such massive 15.9 meter width on the Reeve wall, is guaranteed to restore a bunch of stacks every single time you cast it. And Mesmer Skin itself, total status immunity and stunning enemies when they hit you with reflected damage as well as being immune to damage. But this is now upgraded with Nourish to stun everything in an AoE when a single enemy hits you, or when you damage yourself with Combat Discipline, as well as AoE viral procs and Chain Cascade with Thralls. While it may not seem obvious at first, Nourish actually has way more synergy with Revenant than expected, and you can't even kill yourself with Combat Discipline when a Mesmer Skin is active. It only drops you down to 2 HP. You only get 417% base damage buff with 238 strength and 7 Thralls, or 487% with Madurai Sling Strength active. Still, this is a nice instant damage buff before weapon arcanes kick in, and it's still roughly a final 2x damage multiplier by how much base damage it adds. Because Thrall Pact only buffs primary weapons, I've opted for Arcane Acceleration in the Arcane slot. Otherwise, if you have energy problems, feel free to use Energize. You can also consider dropping Umbral Intensify for Equilibrium instead. If you wanted to bring this setup to Endurance, I would recommend replacing Augur Reach with Cunning, Drift, and Axelis, and then slotting in Rolling Guard. Since Thrall Pact only works with primary weapons and Nourish only primes viral, you don't get that many different status effects for Gun CO. Thus, this Revenant is best suited for AoE primaries such as Brahma, Envoy, Zar, etc. Because of the unified ammo types we have these days being just primary and secondary ammo instead of shotgun, rifle, sniper, bow ammo, etc., ammo is no longer as much a concern for AoE launchers. You can just use the old Vigilante supply strat in the X list, but if ammo is still an issue, consider running Rifle Scavenger. Keep in mind this will stop you from using Combat Discipline to trigger Nourish viral procs on demand, and Arcane Avenger though. You are free to use normal weapons too, such as, well, this Corrosive Heat 10 Tetra. One of the best assault rifles in the game, but is still an assault rifle, aka single target weapon relying on punch through. If I picked a Toxin Progenitor though, I could have actually saved a slot and go pure Corrosive. Then you could use the empty slot for 100 munitions. Why? Because you have Corrosive for raw damage, Nourish gives you the viral for viral damage and procs, and then 100 munitions will bleed out anything that corrosive damage can't kill. Basically, an all-purpose shredder, fun gun if you're looking for assault rifles, and it even rips apart acolytes. Also, if you really need to, you still have the AoE altfire to do massive damage. For pistols, utility weapons, and companions, I'm just gonna refer you to the earlier section when I discussed this with Zaku, as both frames today use the exact same utility weapons and companion setups. The builds are relatively simple to use. For Zaku, you accuse targets, cast Nourish on them, use your Xana's Whisper or lock guns, whether you're using ability or weapon DPS, and then cast Gaze as needed, particularly for lock setups and freeze timers with Vast Untime, to make things easier to manage and cheaper to keep casts active. Keep in mind that Vast Untime will not freeze Nourish timers, but that this ability is always recastable with massive buff radius. You can shield gate with any ability on this Zaku, be it Xana's Whisper or Vast Untime for more crowd control and safety. For Revenant, you just keep Mesmer Skin active, reave things as desired if they're problematic, or to restore Mesmer stacks. Your 4 is replaced with Nourish so you can buff your Thralls. With no armor strip, they should live relatively well. Just run around with your Brahma or other AoE launcher, or your rifle and blow things up. Thrall Pack for the fat damage buff. While you don't maintain an invincible Thrall like the Mind Control Revenant setup, this is an alternative Revenant synergy on how you can bring scaling buffs and crowd control to Endurance. The free viral procs and stun will be forever relevant, as well as fat buffs to your energy economy. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like, or better yet, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with the Lewis Prey update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You won't miss out on any of that, do you? And that'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.